Alrighty, we are in Daf Yud Beis Amud Aleph. We are in the middle of an interesting Gemara. The Gemara first was talking about mezuzah, and then it jumped into a Beis HaKnesses and a Beis HaShutvin and a Beis HaIsha being putter from first regarding mezuzah and then regarding Negayim. And the Gemara picked up on that and asked the stira whether Beis HaKnesses is going to be mitama bin Negayim. Can a shul have Negayim? Okay, and the Gemara had a stira. The Gemara brought three different answers. The first teretz was it's a machlekes of Meir and the Rabbanan, and depending if you hold that it's chayiv and mezuzah, then you would hold that it would be matam ben negayim, and if it's not chayiv and mezuzah, it's not matam ben negayim. That was the first teretz. The second teretz is everybody agrees if a Beis HaKnesses has a place to live in, it's going to be chayiv in mezuzah, and if we're talking about a shul that has a beis dira, so then it could be matam ben negayim as well. And if it doesn't have a beis dira, it won't be matam ben negayim. And then finally, the Gemara says, even if it doesn't have a beis dira, if it belongs to the Krakim, we'll start on the top of your beis amud aleph. V'had the Krakim, v'had the Kfarim. If it belongs to the Krakim are big cities. Big cities, the shuls were meant for everybody to use. Like every shul was like a Chaim Vashalom. The shul was meant for the public, and people come in from all over the place, and they use the shul. So that's a very public area, and therefore it will not be matam ben negayim because there's no bailim to it, as opposed to kfarim, which is how many people you have in your village. Everybody there is accounted for, and that's their shul. So that's considered like a Beis HaKnesses of shutvim, and therefore it will be a chayiv. It will be matam ben negayim. Yeah, that's what we got up to yesterday. Top line, the Gemara. You're telling me that a Beis HaKnesses in a big city is not metama ben negayim? V'atanya, we learned in a brayso. The pasuk says achuzaschem. A house that is in achuzaschem is part of your inheritance, is part of your Yerusha. So that's achuzaschem is metama ben negayim. The ein Yerushalayim metama ben negayim, but Yerushalayim is not metama ben negayim. Why? Because Yerushalayim is not part of Achuzaschem. Amr Rabbi Yehuda, ani lo shemati. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear about Yerushalayim not being part of the Achuzah, Ela Makkah Mikdash Bilvad, except for the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so he agrees that the Beis Hamikdash will not be Matam ben Negayim. It says the Gemara, he's Medaik, Habate Knesiyas Ubate Midrashas, but shuls and Bate Midrashas are being Matam ben Negayim. The Avagav the Krakim, then Yerushalayim is a Krach, and you're seeing the being matam ben negayim. So the Gemara answers like this: no. When Rabbi Yehuda said El Makkah Mikdash, that wasn't the exact nusach. Rather, Ema ani Loishamati El Makkah Mekudash Bilvad. That it's a Makkah Mekudash, and that would include but they can see us about the midrashas being that they're Makkah Mekudash, they're not going to be matam ben negayim. What is this machlokes? Whether or not Yerushalayim is Matama ben Negayim or not. Rabbi Yehuda says Yerushalayim is not Matama ben Negayim, and the Tanakama says Yerushalayim. I'm sorry, the Tanakama says Yerushalayim is not Matama ben Negayim, and Rabbi Yehuda says it is Matama ben Negayim. How is this in Yerushalayim? Are they Matama ben Negayim or not? The Mai Kamiflagi says the Gemara. Tanakama Savar Yerushalayim loy nischal kol hashvatim. This is a big sugya. It comes up lots of places. Was Yerushalayim divided amongst the Shvatim? Is there any Shevet who has a proprietary rights over Yerushalayim? So the Tanakhama says, Lo nischalka Yerushalayim l'Shvatim. Yerushalayim was not divided amongst the Shvatim, and therefore it's not called an Achuzah, and therefore it will not be Matam ben Negayim. Rabbi Yehuda said Yerushalayim nischalka l'Shvatim. Yerushalayim was nischalka l'Shvatim, and therefore it is considered an achuzah, and it will be metama ben negayim. This machlekes beplukt the hani tanoi. This machlekes of whether or not Yerushalayim was nischalka l'Shvatim belongs to a different tanoi, other tanoi. The Tanya learned in the brayso. Ma hoya bechilkai shel Yehuda. What belonged to the chiluk of Yehuda? So you already see this Tana holds that Yerushalayim was nischalka l'Shvatim, and Yehuda was a shevet that got Yerushalayim. So the Tana asks, what part of Yerushalayim belong, or Mahayi B'Chelek Shel Yehuda? What was in the Chelek of Yehuda? So it says Harabayis. We're going to be moving from east to west, so we start with Harabayis, and then we got the Lishkos. Just to give you to keep you oriented. When we go to the Kaisel Hama Aravi, so that's the western wall, right? So if you'd go east, you'd start with the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and then go to the Kodesh, and then go to the Mizbeach, and then go to the Azars. Right? That's the way it went. Right? If you were going east. So when we're describing now, we're going east to west. So we're talking about Harabayis, and then we got the Lishkais, the offices, Ha'azaris, the Ezras Nashim, the Ezras Yisrael, and the Ezras Kohanim. Okay, so all those belonged up until the Mizbeach, but was in the Chelek of Yehuda. What was in the Chelek of Binyamin? So he got the Ulam. If you can picture, a picture of the building that looked like a tefillin, you know what I'm talking about? There's like, from an aerial view, it looked like a tefillin. So the wide part, the very wide part, was called the Ulam, and in from there was the Heichel, and that's where the Kalim, the Mizbeach, the Menorah, and the Shulchan were. And then Ubeis Kodesh HaKadoshim, and then the most west part of that was the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Okay. There was a little a strip that went from the Chelek of Yehuda, and it goes into the Chelek of Binyamin, and that's where the Mizbeach was built. Binyamin it bothered Binyamin so much that he's going to be missing a Chelek.
Is it Mara somewhere else?
Yes. It's maybe in Brachas. Let's see. It's quoted here in Megillah.
Yes, Megillah.
And Zvachim. You're familiar with it?
Like having deja vu.
Okay.
This from the womb, or I learned
This is Megillah Chavav, the Maseres Shah says. Okay. That's where the Mizbeach was. He wanted to swallow that part up also. Every day he would daven about this. He would daven about it every day. Binyamin's Chelek became the place where the Shekhinah rested. Between the shoulders dwells, and that is the Shekhinah dwelling in the Ma'irav, in the western part of the Beis Hamikdash. So this Tana, Sava Yerushalayim leNeschalka. Sorry. So this the Tana we just learned holds that the Beis Hamikdash, Yerushalayim, was divided amongst Yehuda and Binyamin. Yehuda taking the eastern part and Binyamin taking the western part. This Ritzua that went out, the Mizbeach itself was built in the Chelek of Binyamin, but there was one part of that was still in the Chelek of Yehuda, and that was, if you're familiar with the Mizbeach, there was a foundation, a yesod that went on Amma, that went around the border of the bottom of the Mizbeach, where you would do a nisuch of the dam would be poured on that. But there was one part of the yesod, it was called, there was no Mizbeach, and that was in the southeastern part, if I'm not mistaken, had no yesod. And that's because that was in the Chelek of Yehuda, not in Binyamin. Okay. So that was the Tana that hold that Yerushalayim was in Schalka. The Gemara goes weiter. And the next Tana holds that Yerushalayim was not divided. The Tana learned in a brayso. Ein maskirin batim b'Yerushalayim. You can't rent out homes in Yerushalayim. You got that? Ein maskirin batim b'Yerushalayim. Lefisha ein shalahen, because it doesn't belong to them. This is talking about when you came up to be Oila Regel. So you wanted a place to stay. It was free. You couldn't charge people to, and Rabbi Lazar, you couldn't even charge people for a bed to sleep in. He said the bed belongs to them. You can't charge them. Lefikach. Now why not? Lefikach. Therefore, Oyres Kachim Bali Ushbazichnim Neitlan Oisim Bezraya. Chazal instituted that the Oyres, the the hides of your karbanis. Everybody was there bringing karbanis. The hides that you got, you'd give to your host. And not only that, they could actually take it forcefully if you didn't give it to them. They wanted them. And Amar Abai Shlomo, no, you heard from me that the derech eretz was lemishpach inish gofa. If you came up and you were staying by, if you were being hosted by somebody, you were a guest, and you brought a jug of water or a jug of something, you should leave the jug for your host. Umashcha lushmach, and you should leave the highs for your host. Now that would be derech eretz, and that was the takana that Chazal made. What do you see from here, though? That Yerushalayim was not neschal kol shvatim, and therefore everybody has a chelik in it, and therefore you have no right to charge anybody rent for coming up to see Yerushalayim. So that's the machlekes. Rav Yehuda and Rav Tanakama and Rav Yehuda is the same machlekes as these brises of whether Yerushalayim was neschal kol shvatim. Gewaldig. Says the Gemara, Ude kvarim mi metam b'negoyim. Now we're attacking the other point that we made on the top of the page. That the assumption was that the Krakim should not be metam b'negoyim, and we challenged that. And then we're challenging that the kvarim you assumed should be metam b'negoyim. The Gemara is not going to challenge that. Ude kvarim mi metam b'negoyim. Our shuls and villages, are they taking metam b'negoyim? But Tani, we learned in a brayse. The brayse says la'achuzah. This is a Kisavay Eretz Canaan. When you come to Eretz Canaan, Ashani Noisim Lechem la'achuzah, I will give to you as inheritance. So the pasuk says that I give to you as an achuzah. So first of all, achi yichbeshu oisa, until you conquer the land. There's not going to be any tumas nagay. Kavshu oisa, once you conquered it, and you didn't divide it up yet, also not going to be. Chelkul Shvatim, Chelkul Beisavais. You divided to the Shvatim, but you didn't divide it up to each household. And Chelkul Beisavais, Ve'inkol Echad Makar Shaloi, Minayin, Tamad Leimer Uba Ashaloi Habayis. The house has got to be, it's got to be this house that belongs to somebody, and he knows it belongs to him. Misham Yuchad Loi, it's got to be designated to him. Yatsu Elu She'enim Yuchad Loi. That would come to exclude a shul, because even though a shul is, you may know who uses the shul, but it's not miyuchad, it's not designated for his usage, and therefore that would not be matam b'negoyim. Says the Gemara, El Machvarta Kedashanin Mikar. Let's go back to the original answers that we gave. That not this one of the chiluk between Krakim and Kvarim, either the one that there's a chiluk between whether it had a base dira in it, or it's a machlekes of Meir and Rav Yehuda. Okay, Gishmak. Now we're coming back to Yoma. Here we go. Says the Gemara, so you remember, we appointed another kohen to serve in place of the kohen gadol, just in case ira by psul. Says the Gemara, Pshita. Let's talk about this a little bit. What's actually going to happen if the kohen gadol became puzzle? What are we going to do? Says the Gemara, Pshita. What's going to be the issue, by the way? You remember we learned back on Daf Hey, was it that long ago, that you have to be mechanech the kohen gadol. Remember, there's a pasuk. It says that for 7 days the kohen gadol would serve in his big day kahuna, and he would wear and he would be moishechim with oil. That was his chinuch. That was his inauguration to being kohen gadol. And the Gemara made a judge that even if he didn't do it for 7 days, if he did it for 1 day, that's also good. But he needs a chinuch. He needs to be inaugurated into the kuna gadol. So how are you going to just anoint? How does this guy all of a sudden become kohen gadol? You know what I mean? The kohen gadol, we have a kohen gadol and he's serving, and something happens to him. So how are we going to inaugurate the next this new person to be the kohen gadol?
You're saying you can do it in 1 day, so the child is really happens only less than 1 day.
We're talking about on Yom Kippur. Something happened to this guy. What are we going to do now? So let's say you don't need a whole day. You need to do a service, right, in the Shemayim Begadim. But the kohen gadol is not always wearing the Shemayim Begadim in his service in the Beis HaMikdash on Yom Kippur. So how are we going to be mechanech the kohen sheni in the Kuna Gadol? That's the sugya. Here we go. Gishmak. Zok the Gemara. Pshita. I understand, it's obvious. Ira by psul, if a psul occurred to the kohen gadol, koidim tamid shel shecher, before the tamid shel shecher was brought, so mechanchen oisei b'tamid shel shecher. Gewaldik. We'll give the kohen sheni a I'm gonna call him the Skan Kayin Gadol. We're gonna give him the Shemayin Begadim. He'll wear them while he does the service of the Talmud Shel Shachar, which is done in the Shemayin Begadim. Gavaldik. So we're machanach him in the Kuna Gedela, and therefore now the rest of his avodah he's the Kayin Gadol. Terrific. Oh. Let's just take a look at the Rashi for a second to spell it out a little bit better. Pshita Ira. You see that there's a little more than halfway down in the Rashi. Pshita Ira b'Kohen Gadol psul b'Yom Kippurim koydem Talmud Shel Shachar. If the Kohen Gadol became possible on Yom Kippur before the Talmud, Mechanchin Oischei Lezeh Hamishamish Tachtav b'Talmud Shel Shachar. So we'll inaugurate or we'll train, we'll inaugurate the Kohen that is serving in place of him with the Talmud Shel Shachar. Rashi says, "Sheyasehu Talmud Shel Shachar b'Shemayin Begadim." He will do the Talmud Shel Shachar in his 8 garments. V'yehi mechunach l'Kuna Gedela. And now he'll be inaugurated to the Kuna Gedela. Koydem she'agiya v'Yisem Kippur. Before the service of Yom Kippur comes, he'll already be inaugurated. Givaldik. But says the Gemara, keep a hold on that Rashi. We'll do the next Rashi in a minute. But Ira by Psul Achar Talmud Shel Shachar. But if a Psul occurs after the Talmud Shel Shachar is brought, so now you know what happens after Talmud Shel Shachar? We're going to change. The Kohen Gadol changes to his white clothes, right? So by man mechanchen, I say, how are you going to be mechanechim into the Kuna Gedela by him serving in the white clothes? Guess what? That's this basic. I mean, it's not exactly the same as the regular Kohen, but a regular Kohen wears the same. He wears only white. So this guy, the Kohen Gadol, is wearing, okay, maybe a little fancier, but he's just wearing this. He's going to look like a Kohen Hedjed, basically. So how are we going to be mechanechim? So that's the Gemara. That's the Rashi. It's only in 4 begadim. How is it nicker that he's the Kohen Gadol? How does he leave his state of Hedjit to become the Kohen Gadol? Because the avodah of Yom Kippur needs to be done with a Kohen Gadol. So how are you leaving your status of a Kohen Hedjit by putting on the same clothes that everyone else is wearing? That's not going to work. Oh, so now we got an issue. Great. So what do we do? Amar Rav Adabar Ahava Be'avnei. Oh, you know what we could do? There's something different about him. He's wearing an all-white avneit. Okay, so what does a regular kohen wear? Well, we learned already. There's a machlekes what a regular kohen wears. Does he wear the same thing as the Kohen Gadol, or does he wear a white one? So it says the Gemara, Ha nichel man damar avneit shel kohen hedyet, zehu avneit shel kohen hedyet, Kohen Gadol zehu avneit shel kohen hedyet. If you hold that the Kohen Gadol shemayin begadim and the avneit of the Kohen Hedjed were all the same, remember that was kilayim. That was made of kilayim. The Kohen Gadol's belt was for sure made of kilayim. There's a machlekes if the Kohen Hedjed's belt was just white or it was the same as the Kohen Gadol. So if you hold it was the same as the Kohen Gadol, that's great, because normally the Kohen Hedjed would wear a colorful belt, but here on Yom Kippur, when he puts on the Arba Begadim, they're all white. So now there is actually something unique about him. He's wearing only something that the Kohen Gadol would wear. Great. That a Kohen Hedjed always wears a white belt. So now the Kohen Gadol, when he changes into his Vigdei Lavan, he's also only wearing a white belt. So now there's no distinction between him and a Kohen Hedjed. So what are you going to say? You know what? Let him put on the Shemaina, Leiva Shemaina. Umehapich b'tzinaira. And you know what? Let him do? Get him go on to the Mizbeach and turn over the meat of the Talmud Shel Shachar. Mehapich b'tzinaira. Tzinaira is a fork. He takes a fork and he turns over the meat to make it burn better. That's considered an avodah. That if a zar did it, he'd die for that. So that's something that, okay? So that's an avodah. He's doing it in the Shemayin Begadim. So now he was in Schanach as a Kohen Gadol. Great. Uktavuna dam ravuna. Zar shahavach b'tzinaira. A zar that flips it over with the fork. Chayiv misa. Gevaldik. That's one eitzah. The Papa Amar avodasai minchan chasai. Him doing a service that only the Kohen Gadol can do, that's machanechem as a Kohen Gadol. It's like they bon kach, they come at the same time.
Even if he's not wearing No, he has to be wearing.
He's wearing the white. So the kasha is, so how is he nigga? He's the Kohen Gadol because he's doing a service that only the Kohen Gadol does. Normally on a regular weekday, the Kohen Gadol, there's no service that only the Kohen Gadol does. So it's not nicker. You can't tell that he's the Kohen Gadol. But here, if this guy puts on white, okay, so his clothing doesn't do it for him. But the avodah he's doing is something that only the Kohen Gadol does. So avodah say minchan chasoy. His avodah is what initiates him.
What who you saying before? Who's chayav misa? If someone does that,
A zar. A zar is a non-kohen. The non-kohen goes with a fork onto the mizbech and flips over the meat. He must die. Then that's b'dei shemayim. So let's finish off this gemara. We're now learning the brisa. Kol hakelim she'asa Moshe. When Moshe originally built the kelim for the Mishkan, mishichasan mikadchasan. So the way they became klei sharis, they became have kedusha for the Beis Hamikdash, for the Mishkan, was through Mashiach, by putting oil on them. But mikan ve'ilek, we don't do that anymore. So how are we machanech? How are we mekadesh kelim? Avodasan mechanchasan. It's the avodah. Using them is actually initiates them. So achanami. So here as well, avodasan mechanchasay. The avodah of the Kohen Gadol will be his chinuch. So there's an interesting machlokes between was it Rav Papa and Rav Huna. Rav Huna holds that actually he needs to be wearing the Shemayim Begadim for chinuch, and Rav Papa says he needs to do an avodah of the Kohen Gadol. Doesn't have to. I know that we got to think about what their machlokes is here. Okay, Kishmak. Have a wonderful day, evening, life.